Welcome back to the Bazaar. I'm Rather Incoherent, and today we're doing post-commentary. To quickly get into my starting decisions, I end up going with a Life Preserver because I think it's the most generically valuable, the most likely to get me to a win in the first couple of days, and with no direct synergy on my skills, I think mid-game builds are most likely to benefit from Final Dose of the lot, so I take that, but I'm not really sure what to take in the moment. I end up going to middle because I don't like early skills, and taking a star chart because it gives me powerful options in the docks for +6 gold, +2 experience, and that makes that event much better. And then I end up thinking about it for a second. Do I think I can take Viper? Viper would be really good if I got its Fang. And eventually I decide, yeah, I can take Viper. And I'm going to go ahead and not edit this out while I quickly explain why I want to do post-commentary. I like doing post-commentary sometimes. One, just as replay analysis to better judge what I'm doing in my games. But two, it also makes it easier to just play the game a ton and then save the most unique videos to actually analyze and talk with you all about. The counterpoint to that would be like, you're probably better off streaming, but my internet connection has been absolutely terrible lately, although I do hope that I can stream this someday in the future. Getting back into the fight currently, you can see that Viper is absolutely terrifying. There's a reason I deliberated on this. I've never seen a plan to beat Viper where it was just, I've got 500 health, I'll probably be fine. And thankfully that is true, I am fine. But as the sandstorm's still getting here and I'm dying with 16 poison, it's easy to forget that Viper has 100 health and dies pretty much instantly. This was actually not very close, but it was still very stressful for me, because I'm all too aware of just how easy it is to throw a run by losing an early fight, especially in the first 3 days. Although losing to Viper is not something I've done in quite a while. Here, I don't want the small non-weapon item or the chocolate bars. I end up going to Kina, because I just need to find something, anything to do with this Life Preserver. You can win early game fights with just a Life Preserver, but it's really unlikely. As people have gotten better at the game, it's happened less and less. And essentially, in a metagame that is mostly Vanessa's, it is far less likely than it was against either a pig or a dueling. Unfortunately, Kina doesn't really have anything for us. The Clamra is not going to make us better proactively. The Pop Snappers will run out immediately, and you have no burn synergy, no ammo synergy. The Coral's not good enough. I don't have the money to roll, and I decide to leave the Kina. Pip's terrible. Spare change isn't great. I'm still desperately looking for a build, and I find more rifles. Unfortunately, if I had taken a weapon scaler, the rifle would be pretty solid, but without the weapon scaler, 5 damage every 2 seconds, like 2.5 DPS won't affect anything. We end up in our first match against Farting. Remember the name, it's not a joke about his name, it's just gonna come up later. And unfortunately for us, Farting has an absolutely incredible early burn build with a welding helmet and the starting skill, and the rest of his items don't really matter. But welding helmet's going to kill us very quickly, even through both health bars. And I'm not convinced that I could have made any decision in this run that would have beat is that Ignition Spark, Final Flame, whichever one it is with Welding Helmet, does so much damage that I'm not convinced any run I could have had with this seed would have beat this. But that's how it goes a lot of the time in day one. You don't really get to decide whether or not you're going to win in day one. You just do your best you can to 1, try to win on day 1, and 2, set yourself up to win later in the run. Unfortunately for us, later in the run's not going to be day 2 because we still have nothing going for us. I decided to pick up some bonus experience here. I know I'm going to need a lot of it down the line because experience is just generally so valuable, both for level up rewards and for health. And unfortunately, the best we can do here is take a friend for maybe poison, at least econ. In this case, the 1 bronze illusory is pretty terrible, and it's basically 1 gold.
I love them all.
We get to our next stop at Barcoon because I can't justify going to the other options. We have 12 gold, but I find nothing in medium or large on the first one. And here I pick up a Cove. Normally I would never ever upgrade Star Chart, and this is a mistake. I shouldn't have upgraded this Star Chart. But I have so little going for this build that I'm genuinely trying to justify how buying a second Star Chart could matter. Star Chart typically won't find its way onto most boards, and the main reason to have it is to buff your ability to go to the docks, to get that 2 experience, 6 gold event. Since we have nothing on our board, the Star Chart reducing the cooldown of 30 shield and slow 1 for 1 isn't very important, and that was just a mistake. Unsurprisingly, we're not fighting the hardest boss today. We go for Covetous Thief, and the argument's pretty much, he probably can't kill me twice before Sandstorm gets him. And we'll go ahead and skip to the end of this because the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, you cannot get killed twice by Covetous Thief before Covetous Thief dies. We don't have anything going for us, but the Life Preserver is still strong. That statement was true, and it's the reason we have any chance of winning for the next couple of days, because there's nothing else going on with this build. The Grindstone's not helping. It's just sitting there taunting us. It's able to buff a weapon, hypothetically. Would you like to go to Colt and buy an ammo weapon that'll run out? We could find a 3rd rifle, But eventually I decided to go to Jungle Ruins, take XP, and hope to sort this out later, largely resigning myself to a probable loss on day 2. I probably should have gone to Mountain Pass here for economy, but with Ayla offering weapons and a grindstone in the bank, I see the possibility that I could conceivably win on day 2 with a grindstone plus a continuous damage weapon and a life preserver that does beat a lot of weaker builds. So unfortunately, rather than taking 2 income, I convinced myself to come to Ayla and then buy a cutlass. However, even though that sounds terrible, and it is, and our level up reward is just gonna be 2 XP because none of this is gonna give us a build, none of this is gonna fix our problem. So I'm just continuing to pump XP and hoping it gets better down the line. The cutlass is a real source of damage. A build has to actually do something to kill us now, or else they will lose in Sandstorm with a low power build. And thankfully, LeBron James is notably better at basketball than he is at the Bazaar, because our opponent's build is actually weak enough for us to stand a chance. You know, provided we live through it, that's kind of important. They deal an absolute shitload of damage for this point in the game. If I had to put a number to it, I'd say it's about 700, because that's the amount of damage they'll have dealt to us before they run out of ammo. Thankfully, we have just enough health to get through that. It was close, and if we hadn't bought this cutlass, we would have died in Sandstorm way before them. Buying this cutlass was actually the reason we won. It's why I so often make tempo plays. It's because having to win another game in the Supreme late game, which you better believe this board is going to the Supreme late game, is really hard. Hurting my long-term economy a little bit to get that early win is valuable, and I think it was the right call. Although I don't know if on average it was. Coming in the next day, we're super broke. XP is very valuable. Gold's valuable to people who have none. So I really want to go to the Lost Crate. I'm trying to convince myself to go to Ayla, but it's just not right. I don't have the money for it. And then I have to go to Colt, basically. I can get some max health, but my build doesn't do anything currently. I need to find something proactive. And sadly, with a bunch of bronze weapons available, I'm going to end up taking a harpoon gun and leaving. The harpoon gun always has a place in any build. It's just very strong, especially if you see yourself up against pigs, sometimes against Port Vanessa as well, though it's less good there. It almost always has some value, especially at higher ranks or with haste. And getting a harpoon gun is generally something you want to do if you're Vanessa. Keep the option to fit that into your build. If you get a plus ammo to something level up, putting it on a harpoon gun is very good. But it does put us in the situation we're currently in, where I'm coping and trying to decide, can I fight Scout Trooper? The answer is obviously no, but I'm trying to delude myself into thinking it's possible, before eventually we decide to go fight Frost Street Challenger. Because you'll see that as the Sandstorm's arriving, the Cutlass is hitting for a whopping 80 damage. I have 4 item slots devoted to, once we're scaled up, dealing about 20 damage per second. It's genuinely terrible. Our board is absolutely awful, and even Frost Street Challenger managed to clear our first health bar and break our life preserver. Thankfully, we get a relatively high value drop from him, but the level up reward's not doing a ton to fix this. It is going to give me a second use on the harpoon gun, but that's not exactly a board that does a lot. This board right now is still just horribly weak. I have the potential to build into stuff. The Cove is good economy, but coming to middle, there's really nothing in my inventory that's making this into a board. My next set is slow items, silver skills, and JJ, and I go to JJ hoping for something, any sort of direction. And I find catfish, and I have to deal with the fact that buying a catfish now is not even going to improve my build, really. I'm at a point where I could have bought the catfish, but what's it even better than? And the answer is not much. Then going to the next page, I could upgrade my cutlass, but frankly, I'd better off buying the bronze rifle, which could have been a gold rifle if I had money for it anyway. And the bronze rifle is actually an upgrade going into my day 3 fight because it deals damage with that sharpening stone more often. But unfortunately for me, farting the Dooley is back. It is the same person on the same run, and unsurprisingly, that build is still steamrolling me. Because now, in addition to his starting helmet and skill, the ignition cores on his board, he has several more burn items are all charging it up. This is even more one-sided than our completely doomed first encounter with the guy. There's really not a lot to say about it this time through, because while we do deal more damage to him, I've got 100 burn on me by the end of this fight. There is no way we were ever winning this. And we're very much still floundering. There are ways out of this, but we kind of have to find something today on day 4. Once you enter day 5, it becomes much harder to tutor the big, large items that are build-arounds. Things like Crow's Nest, Port, Flagship, Submarine. There's a lot of different options you can find and build into, and we're quickly getting to the point where we can't reliably find them. And being broke as shit, I'm going for spare change with the Cove and inventory rather than going to stores there, but I'm not happy about it. I decide I can't kill Hydra Dude, I'll go for the Lead Reef Raider, he has a Crow's Nest, forgetting that he has a revolver with lifesteal that will probably solo my build. Thankfully, the harpoon gun decides to hard carry the build and first shot snipe the revolver. I'm actually not sure if I ever win this in a version of reality where I miss the harpoon gun on both snipes. Or sorry, miss the revolver with both uses of the harpoon gun. It's so incredibly important that I got that, and this run might have been a loss if I hadn't gotten lucky on this fight. Me not appreciating how much damage and lifesteal that revolver was going to do is pretty catastrophic, because that thing has 70% crit chance, it's full healing in pretty much the entire fight, I have no shielding. It was not good. He has four small items that did nothing. I was so likely to fuck up and lose, but thankfully we make it through, we get ammo stash, so now our harpoon gun has veritably unlimited ammo. It'll run out during Sandstorm, who even cares. Of course, we continue the trend of getting level up rewards that really do nothing for us. We take a friend for economy, and it's worth 1 gold. We were hoping for a friend that would be genuinely useful, but that's not what the cards had in store for us, nor what JJ had in store for us. Here at JJ, I'm looking at the ambergris and the jellyfish. I decide that it's positive economy, it gives me more options. I can start buying and selling bronze aquatic items to make money. And then I get flagship on the roll, and like I said, it's not gonna go. I've gotta switch to something soon. I don't have a build at all right now. And I basically need a big build around item. This is a big build around item. This is something I can do. So we start figuring out what the toss is, what our board looks like with the flagship, what has to get cut. And the good news is the random assortment of items we have with that jellyfish we just bought is enough to get the full 5 multi-strike on the flagship. The bad news is it doesn't mean our board's going to be remotely good. Oh, that's not quite true. We're only at 4 right now because we don't have a property to pair with it. Theoretically, we could put the Cove in, but there's no way to fit the Cove that doesn't cost us far more power than it gives. So we're willing to take 4x multi-strike, way better use of the sharpening stone than what we had previously. We're getting a little bit of value out of our poison ability now. We have the harpoon with unlimited ammo and the life preserver. And we'll keep pumping gold and XP because we're completely broke and XP is very valuable. But our build is very, very far from good right now. It's a lot more acceptable, but we're really at the mercy of our opponents, whether we win or lose on day 4 with a silver flagship and pitiful scaling methods. Getting into our Vanessa fight, we find out, much to our dismay, that it is a pufferfish build that has found the second pufferfish, monitor lizard. I've never seen this before. I don't think it mattered. I was going to get destroyed by any competent poison build, and this is a very competent poison build for day 4, having 6 small aquatic items to make sure that the jellyfish is hasting constantly, double triggering for both the pufferfish and monitor lizard. It's just a way, way stronger build than what I'm currently doing, and I never stood a chance. Which is the name of the game, really, with this start. Sometimes with Life Preserver, you quickly find powerful pieces and assemble a strong build. Other times, like this time, you're desperately seeking it out. And here, full start of day 5 is gracious and gives us Crow's Nest and a second flagship. We have to figure out how and if we can afford what parts of this, and after a little bit of thinking and juggling, we eventually come to this conclusion. We sell our old Cove to liquidate the money, then buy the new Cove, so that we're able to get, essentially at a cost of 3, we get access to all the money in the Cove without losing the Cove we currently had. Then we are able to both buy the Crow's Nest and the flagship by only selling one thing. Eventually, I sort out what my board's going to look like, then I'm gonna have to sell some of my old board. We buy the Crow's Nest, we toss some of our old medium items, and we pick up the new flagship. And you can see that my brain's just really racking itself. I'm doing this very slowly, trying to figure out, do I have to hold the ambergris? Which pieces can I sell? Because no matter what I do, I'm selling things that were part of my old power and becoming not that powerful in exchange. But now we have 200 lifesteal damage with 25% crit chance, which, like, you know, for day 5 really isn't that good on a 6-second cooldown, but it is miles ahead of where we were. Then going into the next event, we have Andy, but we're bankrupt, so we're gonna go for chocolate bars with a Cove to double their value. Well, not double their value, give them value at all. And here we go for Mod Squad. In my mind, this is an easy Mod Squad fight. I always just like assume without even really thinking about it that I beat Mod Squad. And this Mod Squad fight isn't as easy as I thought it was, because if you're destroying small items every 8 seconds, that's pretty slow. Most of the scaling's already happened. Additionally, if my only source of damage is roughly 250 damage every 6 seconds, I pretty much take until the sandstorm gets here to kill the guy, giving him a ton of time to scale up that bulldozer and absolutely clobber me with it. Thankfully, we're not losing, but we are so much closer to losing than I thought we were. The last bulldozer hit as the sandstorm is getting here rather, pushes us down to about 150 health. We don't lose, thankfully, and we're still in this by the grace of God. Unfortunately, Bomb Squad's not exactly the drop you're looking for when you fight Mod Squad. And here I have to decide what the best upgrade is. I ended up deciding for Crow's Nest. First, I know that upgrading Crow's Nest is going to be very valuable for 100% crit later, but also I don't want a diamond flagship. Having the flagship go to diamond would mean that I have a much harder time finding an upgrade for one of these things as opposed to getting both of them to high levels, and it's very likely that I need both at this point. Here, I'm very happy to see Honing Steel. I don't have a tool on board because of the harpoon gun nerf. I originally am like, oh, I should get the ammo horn for the harpoon gun, because my brain is fried trying to make this garbage build work, and then I realize, oh, I have 4 ammo on it, what am I doing? And I buy the Honing Steel for, you know, quote-unquote damage scaling on the ship. 10 damage every 4 seconds is pretty pitiful, but I'm happy to see the docks come up and get 6 gold for experience when I'm broke, and experience is my one saving grace at this point. We're nearly a full level ahead of the day count, which is a good place to be, especially this early. But our build's just so weak. We're really hoping Vanessa is not a cracked poison build like the last one we saw, but without the life preserver, I'm not well poised against burst either, and really I'm just hoping he's weak, which quite obviously he isn't. The man has astrolabe, a 9 poison pufferfish, a 250 shield diamond seashell. It's not close. This is me once again getting blown out, not even close to winning this fight. Now the good news is, we still have at least one more loss in us before Death's Door. The bad news is we have to find so much to get this build to work. And basically, I'm at a point where I'm realizing for me to win, I have to go all in on the ship. I'm never gonna have time to pivot again. I'm too close to dead. I have to start taking like ship CDR and ship damage and forcing the ship to scale up enough to win the game eventually. So I end up going with Force Amplifier here over Experience, because previously experience was my way out, but now the ship is my way out. So going into day 6, we really do have to find something that makes this build good. We have the framework of a flagship build. It's not the weakest thing you can be doing at this point, but with only a silver crow's nest and nothing really strong outside of our 2 large items, we have to figure something out. The issue is that we are moderately poor, skills aren't great yet, we really don't have good plans. So I'm mostly just pushing experience with these events. I'm not seeing shops that can improve my core items. I'm not seeing events that can really fix anything. So I'm taking experience, I'm taking gold, and here I'm fighting Enclave Weeper because I cannot really find a way to improve what I'm working with. I'm just sort of floundering on Flagship. But you've seen the lead of the video. You know that Flagship is not the death of this build. Flagship's very often a thing that's very hard to transition into because when you start off with a flagship build, it just doesn't do enough on its own. Thankfully, we're getting through that part. If we can just find a few more pieces to scale up the flagship, or hell, even just level a couple of times to give it some static damage boost, we'll get somewhere, but we have to find something. And here on this level up, we're once again being told, essentially, you can scale its damage a little bit or get next to nothing. And each time you take that choice, we're locked in further and further to the flagship. Here, ammo items are tempting, but I finally remember, no, I don't, I skipped docks. I skip docks and I go to ammo items looking for God knows what. I should have just gone docks. Here we can liquidate our cove again. Essentially, every time you do that, you spend 3 gold to get all the gold you've made thus far, but keep the benefit of the cove. I think I called it a docks a second ago. I'm hung up on that mistake. And I'm looking at this like, is there a way to transition from from flagship to submarine? And essentially the answer is, oh God, no. 1, I've already invested in the flagship, but 2, the submarine's a lower tier, it does so much less. And I buy the port here on the basis of, I like port a lot, and worst case scenario, it's an economy card. I'm hoping that somehow port can be my transition out of this. And I'm going to relatively quickly realize, like, oh, I don't have any room in my inventory. I've made a mistake. But for now, it's going to get me a random ammo item, and we'll see what to do with it tomorrow.
You should know, I'm a bit of a
We go up against another duelie, and this time, for once, I have something resembling a build. The flagship's starting to hit moderately hard. Our opponent's playing what looks to be a relatively weak force field build without a ton of quick triggering items. Shield core is really not the best you can do here, but my build's just still not there, man. The flagship's getting better. We're closer to a real build than we were, but his small items aren't scaling, or sorry, aren't doing enough to matter that I destroy them. We just can't get in under the force field. There's not enough damage pushing it, and even though it's a valiant effort by the flagship, it's too little, too late. His shield's out of control, and the force field kills me. However, by the grace of God, we're left with 1 prestige and a dream. We can still win this. We have to go 9-1 after starting off 1-5, which is a big ask. And the thing we're working with as our base shell isn't very good. The port pulls up a Noxious Potion, by the way, which is not very useful. And I'll end up going to the docks just for golden experience before heading off to crit skills and trying to find something. We don't find any crazy scalers at the crit skill vendor, but we do find Stunning Strike, which is a pretty substantial amount of freeze, and if we can accelerate the speed at which we go off, it'll be a massive amount of interruption. So, hoping that we can somehow get a faster boat down the line, we pick up Stunning Strike, because really, it's far better than the alternatives, even with the current boat speed, and it will be much, much better if we can get this boat going off faster. Anyway, we spend a while deliberating whether or not we can take Radiant Corsair. I'm really not sure that I can, but I come to the conclusion that with all the lifesteal I have, the anchor not hitting that hard, the scaling I have, surely I can take Radiant Corsair. And the fight is an absolute grind that goes to Sandstorm, so we're going to skip ahead a little bit into it. And you can see as the Sandstorm starts, he's decently into his second health bar. The anchor goes off, we instantly heal it all, and we do have the scaling required to get through the damn Parrot. Unfortunately, it's not like a clean fight. We're only about 1,000 health over the Parrot. It's like for margins of victory against Radiant Corsair, that's pretty low, and he's not that hard of a fight. And we don't get anything particularly valuable, just a grappling hook. But at least we can beat him and get the experience, get the gold, and then struggle with the question of what do we do? I pick ammo item for economy, but none of those level up rewards were really particularly valuable. And here we're left choosing between small items, poison item, or temp boost. And it's getting to the point where maybe temp boost for health and repeating that over and over again is a valid source of scaling, but also my board's just weak as hell. Maybe I want a silencer, maybe I'm transitioning to a port build and want holsters. I don't know what I want, but I do know that the current board I have is probably not going to finish out the run. So I go to Andy looking for something else, not really sure what. Silencer and Pesky Pete are actually both 2 fairly meaningful hits that I deliberate about quite a lot. The Silencer can give me, currently, everything on my board other than the ship is giving me a multicast, so I can't just cleanly put it on board, but it is 20% CDR and some amount of damage. And Pesky Pete gives me a non-aquatic ally instead of the jellyfish. The jellyfish is more poison than Pete will be burned, but the important thing with that is that Pesky Pete, not being aquatic, allows me to use a skill called Aquatic Rush down the line, and that skill will haste starting aquatic items. The jellyfish doesn't matter, so being able to have a friend that forces the haste onto the boat is very valuable.
excellent choice.
And I fiddle with my board for a long time here. Skipping to the end of the shop, you can see that I've bought the silencer, I buy Pesky Pete, but nothing actually goes on my board. I have these things, they are potentially going to improve my board down the line, but right now the CDR from the silencer isn't worth losing the multicast, and I really can't see how to improve my board. I'm in this awful gridlock where I just can't find the solution, and I choose to go for skill upgrades, hoping to get something, and unfortunately just getting a little bit more freeze on Stunning Strike. It's not a bad upgrade, 2 more seconds of freeze is good, but I was hoping to find something better than that on a given hour. And you can see I'm still just constantly grappling with this, moving my board around, trying to figure out if there's a way to get more damage, do I need the lifesteal, going back and forth. And eventually, after much deliberation, we end where we started and we go to fight the pig. I think that there's no real argument to trying to get lower CDR and cutting out the harpoon gun because it's a pig. He's got very, very valuable things on his board, and this pig actually has 1 million small items. Thankfully, his build's not like that incredibly strong. There's no beehive triggering off of my items. His vineyard hasn't scaled up that much. They're not diamond weights. And we can relatively easily push through him. Eventually he would scale up and become a problem if I weren't able to dismantle his board at least a little bit. And well, it turns out that's just fear looking at Waits and Vineyard, because this harpoon gun is not ever going to touch the bird. We're getting through this purely on the back of the boat, because man, is harpoon gun throwing for this fight. Thankfully though, we deal so much damage with the ship that we're just ahead going into fatigue. We have higher starting health because we're a higher level than him. We have better life steal than he has healing, and we're able to win in fatigue even though we never managed to snipe that bird. And this is the first fight in the entire run at the end of day 7, 2 and 5, where I feel like the build actually outclassed its opponent. Was it good? Still no. But we're starting to get level up rewards where they say give damage to your weapon, and it feels like I've got a plan to win the run, and I'm not just clicking it and hoping that Flagship will be able to carry.
Hello, little sis.
Here we've got a pole as one of our first vendors on day 8. We click on it every time. We have 2 large items. It's so good to upgrade either of them. Port's probably a pipe dream, but it could be upgraded as well. We roll. We can't really fit a cove into our bank because we're screwing around with port, because we're coping and hoping to somehow go to a port build. And we have somehow hit every single large item we don't run, it feels like. I think there's more of them. Pole's not very reliable post day 5 on Vanessa, but seeing neither of my items get upgraded does hurt. Then on the next day, or the next hour rather, we're looking at spirit change, weapons, and small items. Weapons is going to upgrade my boat, and honestly, I'm not sure coming here was the right thing, because it's really just the boat. No weapons ever going on my board, because it would cost me my ability to get life steal on the boat. And coming into our fight, we go for Robo Bouncer. There's just not really important items on these other fights. So we're just going for maximum experience, maximum gold, and we get a chance to see how dangerous is Robo Bouncer, because he shouldn't be. A good build should walk over Robo Bouncer. It's not even going to be close. And here we get best possible freeze, because the pulse rifle stops firing, stops triggering sharpened steel on the cybersecurity, which is the Robo Bouncer. It's a little bit weird that he is sort of on his own board. But we steamroll this fight. For once, we fight somebody and we feel like our build's doing its job. There's still weak stuff on our board. We're not happy about the jellyfish. The honing steel's not really doing a ton. Like, it is scaling damage and it's double value because I have high crit chance, but it's not that good. I end up going to the haste skill vendor because I know specifically I'm looking for Oceanic Rush, but at silver it only affects 1. I need at least gold so it can target the aquatic harpoon gun and the boat. And against the other options, I end up taking Alacrity. One of the stronger things the boat can do once you hit higher crit chance is it charges itself, or something at least, 5 times when it goes off for 3 seconds each with the diamond version of Alacrity. So Alacrity is a lot of action compression. I don't know if that's quite the right word in this game, but it's a lot of charging with this boat. When I get my level up reward, I choose to upgrade the Crow's Nest. I have 2 incredibly important items where the level matters a lot. Upgrading 1 to diamond makes it less likely that I get one of them to diamond at a shop. And they're both pretty equivalently valuable, I think. At this point, I'm realizing I'm gonna get more damage from non-item sources. Like the diamond boat's gonna be like 25 damage. I'm gonna get so much more damage over the course of the run from level up rewards and various skills that the Crow's Nest is obviously more valuable anyway. But I just want to upgrade the one that's not going to diamond so I can find upgrades more reliably. Anyway, I've been rambling for a while. We're fighting a pig, and this pig has a much better build than the previous pig, doing largely the same thing with a bird, a bunch of heal items, the multicast heal hut that is essentially a life preserver, and weights. Hilariously, once again, the harpoon gun does not want to shoot the bird. He's very cute. We've established the bias of my harpoon gun. Thankfully though, the opponent really doesn't do a ton outside of the bird and the weights. Like, he's just scaling his healing, which, since I'm already outclassing him in damage, he really doesn't stand much of a chance in that regard. And we managed to get through another relatively weak heal pig.
All cannon, no ball.
So coming into day 9, we are still just trying to find good scaling methods for this flagship. We need to find skills that put damage on it. We need to find level up rewards that put damage on it. We need to level up so level up rewards give more damage. And we need to finish getting these large items to diamond. If along the way we can upgrade this honing steel into something relevant, it'd be nice. And you can see for a while there, I'm looking at shipwreck. I'm like, is there a way this helps? It's a very good item, but it's 48 gold. It's already got multicast on my main thing. This is irrelevant, right? And I spend a while looking at that before eventually deciding to roll. And when I click roll on arrow, he just leaves. I'll replay that a second time. I click reroll, he closes shop. He fucking bails. Dude did not want to sell me the flagship. I actually like sit there flabbergasted for a second before restarting my game and seeing if this is somehow a glitch that gets fixed. And coming back to the main menu, no, it's just gone. He decided not to sell me a flagship and I can't do shit about it. Poll is also disinterested in giving me either Crow's Nest or flagship, and I'm feeling a little bit tilted after all of that. So moving on to the fight here, I spend a while thinking, like, is Elite Duelist good? If I can get the lifesteal without the Crow's Nest, do I want that? And ultimately the answer is no. I also think, like, could I put spices on my board instead of the honing steel? I put the silencer in, I spend a while coping, like, why is silencer and harpoon gun both not a tool? They're very clearly tools. And eventually I decide that we're going to fight weapons platform. There's really nothing from Elite Duelist I care about. Weapons platform at least has higher average gold value, guaranteed experience, and gold, and there's more reason to come fight the weapons platform. And thankfully, we are at least moderately better than we used to be. As we've leveled up and gotten more damage on the ship, it is at least outpacing the rate at which NPC health is growing, and the ship is making it look progressively more easy to win these fights, because I've had a lot of negative experiences in the past with running a flagship, getting no relevant level up rewards, no relevant skills, and just being like, oh wow, day 5 and day 9 have the same damage output, but not today. This is a flagship that's actually getting scaled by things, and it's nice to see. On that note, we go to Ryukon, the weapons vendor, hoping to find something pretty substantial here, and then I look at this submerge skill and laugh my ass off for a little while, because I cannot believe that +6 per item is a diamond skill in a world with sharp corners. Eventually I stop laughing, realize that right-handed is the best way to add damage to my board, and I purchase that for a measly 6 gold. And then I get my level up rewards, and there's just nothing here other than Force Multiplier, and Force Multiplier is the name of the game, really. We need to put damage on the ship. It's the only option that makes sense anyway, so I'm happy to click it. Going into our next shop, you'll see I've rearranged my board and tried to do the CDR version of the boat, where I've got more cooldown reduction but less uses, and that's mostly me coping and overthinking because my hour events were so bad that I went to Kev's Armory as a flagship build. There's really nothing here that could be useful to me. And once again, I'm looking at the submarine and being like, huh, can I bail on flagship? Nope, not at all. Before moving on, having bought next to nothing, and then realizing that I've gotten a frost potion from my port, which would normally be very good, but we are so many items off of being able to run a port build that it's completely irrelevant. Like, we have the port, the holsters, and the frost potion, and the harpoon gun, but we need 3 other items for a port transition to happen, so we're just gonna go back to harpoon gun because harpoon gun hard counters a lot of pig builds. Running the harpoon gun makes us more likely to win, so even though the CDR build was more damage, it's not going to deal with, say, a busy bee. And going into this fight, this run just encountered a lot of pigs with like really bad bird builds. And I don't mean to like talk poorly about the players, that's not the intent. What I'm saying is the builds I'm fighting compared to what a defensive pig can do are pretty weak. This one at least has a fairly large silk and a deadly spiked shield, but it's not nearly enough to one-shot a player at this point in the game since the silk is only at silver and just hasn't been able to scale enough. So as a result, pretty much immediately, I get through his shield. The spike shield's never doing that much. He does get 1 hit off for 1300, but it's not enough for day 9. Just like my build was not enough for most of the early game, on day 9, you cannot expect this amount of scaling to win a fight. And by the grace of God, we've gotten a couple of softer opponents while we were getting our flagship online, and we're gonna start really taking it to the moon as the game starts being nice to us and giving us vendors that actually help the build. Here we go to Colt because the other options really didn't offer us much, and I'm desperately hoping for a harpoon gun upgrade. We also fish up a revolver at the port, and that's wholly irrelevant. Eventually I decide to roll after looking at the throwing knives and the crow's nest and being sad for a while. And then we decide to leave because the restock was useless, but Nufu has shown up. We're finally seeing skill vendors post day 9, and that gives us a lot of options to be much, much stronger. Unfortunately, I have the awful choice of choosing between upgrading alacrity or rolling, and rolling can give me things that are so much more powerful than 1 additional second of charge. In this case, I don't even recognize it at first because it's so often useless to me, but heavy weaponry is literally like 66% more damage because large weapon damage is usually a skill that doesn't matter. But I don't actually scale up my ship that much. The base damage is what matters. So that is absolutely massive for getting this build to do relevant damage. And now when we shoot Boss Haro, as opposed to our previous fights where things actually like went on for a while and looked moderately difficult, the dude nearly dies in 1 use, and we're starting to have a flagship that does enough damage to be threatening in the late game. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. Boss Haro can also give us some pretty good skills in Assault Focus. Sadly, we get a bayonet, which we're not even allowed to use because it's a weapon, which means it breaks the synergy with stuff like crow's nest or rifle. And I keep doing this thing that I've been doing in the background all run. It's been getting edited out, but I keep moving the silencer and the star chart in and hoping I can find a way to use them, and it just doesn't quite fit. Unsurprisingly, here we go to Paul. We're really trying to get the crow's nest and the flagship. Those are the most important things for making this build more powerful, and by far of the two, the more important is crow's nest, so I'm very happy to see it here. It is essentially 25% more damage on my only source of damage. As for upgrading the ports, it's probably not the right play, but I really like the port. Fishing up things at gold gives them a higher chance of being relevant enough to enter this build, and it's going to be very hard to transition to port if I don't. And then going into the level up reward, there are a couple of options here, vehicle CDR and damage. I ended up going vehicle CDR. I'm not sure that was right. 26 or whatever that was a pretty substantial amount of damage. I think more relevant than 5% CDR. And this vendor hurts. It's arrow again, when I know the only thing you can give me is a flagship that I basically can't afford without selling the port that I'm coping out of my mind pretending is relevant. A poison enchant, which will give me about 10 poison on every crit from flagship, which is not super impactful, it's something. Or just a random haste item. It's a really miserable set of options. I probably should have gone to the poison enchant. I forgot that I had the poison skill that would massively increase the value of the poison enchant, but eventually, after looking at this and being quite sad about it for a long time, I decided to take a haste item. I'm relatively poor, a haste item could be a lot of gold, and in this case, it's the most gold physically possible, and it actually is a problem to fit a diamond trebuchet onto my board so I can sell it. Eventually, I make the questionable decision to sell my jellyfish to get Pesky Pete on board, and also the silencer I've been holding. I don't know that the silencer was the right sell at the end of the day. I did need to sell something. I think holsters or frost potion or even the port itself would have been better because the silencer is much more likely to enter my board in a meaningful way. Regardless, what's done is done, learn from it and move on. We're up against another dually, and this dually is, unfortunately for me, pretty damn strong. He has diamond bulldozer with a friend core and a gold brick buddy, and that is a lot of scaling very quickly with the cooldown reduction and the haste. And I might have been able to get through this, except for a diamond skill that I am not familiar with, where I'm realizing something's going wrong as I get one shot by bulldozer right about now. I'm like, wait, 2400 damage at crit? Excuse me? And then I remember, when you haste, give your items plus 2% crit chance for the fight. I don't know that I was ever going to get out from under him. I think he outscaled me and broke out, but that crit chance did not do any favors. Anyway, I die, I take my random enchant, and it's poison again. I cannot escape it. And I've already done the research on this. I know what the answer is from that previous jump. I put it on the crow's nest, and I'm pleasantly surprised to see it say 10 poison instead of 2 or 4 like I thought it would. I'm also pleasantly surprised to see Zerpin's Safari. Not so much the gold throwing knife that's appeared in my inventory, but monster skills can be very, very impactful. So we head there immediately, don't even really look at the rest to see what we can get, and we are absolutely overjoyed to see Rush. Rush is start of fight haste, which is obviously good in and of itself, but it also means that our damage output at the start of the fight goes off much, much faster. We're more likely to be healing ourselves during someone else's very fast burst window, and we're more likely to just deal damage and get in under our opponents. We end up going to small and large items. We're looking for something better than honing steel, and we're looking for an upgrade to the flagship. We find neither. This build has for a long time been hoping to replace the honing steel and just failing to do it. Without anything specifically important at any of the fights, we end up going to Lure of the Waste because we can easily beat him, and it's also a good benchmark to see how much damage we're really doing. And the answer is quite a fucking lot, to be honest. We very quickly kill him, maybe 10-second fight, if that, for 5,000 damage, which for day 11's not terrible, especially when I'm healing myself for the same damage you don't. We get a genie lamp, but unfortunately it's a little bit too late. We've already died. There's no way to use it for additional deaths. And we take damage scaling because, while we've been a little bit unclear about how good it was earlier in the run, it's something I was learning as the run went on, is just how valuable pumping the damage on that ship is. And then I spend a while deliberating, is the genie lamp worth rolling when I'm currently on? I can roll experience for gold on Shrouded Figure, and that's obviously good, but I'm very worried about dying, and I think that I want to roll with the genie lamp, just trying to find a skill vendor instead. Because while Shrouded Figure is not a bad jump, my life is on the line, and if I get a skill bender next hour, I'll just die without having used the genie. So instead, I go for the genie, I take max health on all of its upgrades because I simply have enough gold that Wish for Wealth is not immediately relevant, and immediate relevancy is all I care about because I'm about to fucking die. We get Nufu. We're thrilled to see it. That's the main reason we even use the genie lamp. And then on his first set, seeing a late lifting is kind of disheartening. The rest of this is moderate damage increase, nothing spectacular, so we roll. There are game-winning skills, we're not settling for any of that. And here we get several options at Diamond, and far and away the most tempting thing here is Lefty Lucy, but it creates a problem. Honing Steel has to be to the left of the ship. We want Lefty Lucy for +2 haste every time our ship goes off, but that requires leftmost item, which means we can't use Honing Steel anymore. And this is where I have to break it to you, that we're keeping Honing Steel on the board and it just doesn't do anything. Because unfortunately, the haste from Lefty Lucy is far more valuable than the damage scaling from Honing Steel. And I simply don't have any one item that is going to do more for me than give another multicast to the ship. And here I'm like, how hard is it for Jay to give me a tool that does more than literally nothing? The answer is remarkably hard. We're going to be experiencing this problem for the rest of the run where I've been desperately trying to find a way to make Honing Steel better. And immediately I was like, no, Frost Potion goes off once, doesn't really matter. I've got to kill him. I can't give up 1/5 of my damage. And it's gonna be like that for a distressingly long period of time. Anyway, we're up against a Dooley, who is also on Death's Door. But our damage has gone up pretty substantially in these last couple of days. And for maybe the first time all run, I might actually be strong. We have Rush, we have Haste that builds itself, and we see this man has multicast Fiber Optics item destruction. He immediately chomps most of our small items, but our small items are only about 40% of our damage. And we've done enough that we can pretty easily finish him off from there. I will say I was terrified as the dinosaur was going off, but ultimately not that close of a fight. Which brings us to day 12, and we really need to find more scaling. Because as you go from days 12 to 15, health starts skyrocketing, so does total damage and general scaling. Heavy weaponry is a lot of damage. A part of me wants to roll here because I can get so many valuable things, but just 50 damage on the ship is good enough. I can't say no to it. And here we have to choose between Pole and Jules Cafe, and I end up not going with Jules Cafe because I don't know if I have a temporary boost at this level that is still active for health scaling. I don't think damage is enough to dictate the fight. So I'm just trying to get the permanent upgrade in damage from upgrading the ship, which I of course miss. And the port is still in the background being a bad economy card, pretending that I can somehow pivot out of Flagship. That is pure cope, that was never going to happen, and I should have accepted it before I even tried to buy the port, but here we are. Up against Void Colossus, this is a great way to test how much damage a build is really doing. We get a pretty good benchmark for how much damage we do. We almost kill him instantly before he gets first out on destroying the Flagship, and then the Poison Crow's Nest finishes it off. I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. Like, for day 12, barely beating Colossus is not terrible. A lot of builds cannot fight Colossus at all. And we have good damage scaling. 30 damage on Force Amplifier is a lot. Because again, we're 5x multicast, 100% crit. That 30 damage is more like 300 damage. And we go to Andy. We're just coping. We're looking for a good one-slot item. We need a better tool than the Honing Steel. And the unfortunate fact is that if you just like stop and look at all the one-slot tools, even the out-of-class ones aren't really solutions most of the time. Like, the only real solution would be like a rivet gun from a Stell vendor. There's nothing good that can replace this Honing Steel. But I get my level 15 level up, and for some reason I get the enchant early. And I go for Celestial Conduit. The one way this build is super likely to lose in the late game, I have very few active items, is for my ship to get frozen. So we take that. And, oh, it wasn't glitched. It was just, wait, what? I went back and checked this. When you level up, it shows you at the old level and the new XP pips, and then when you take your reward, it updates the level but not the experience pips. I've never even noticed that bit of UI failure. So we didn't get lucky and glitch it to 15, it did happen on 16, and we're up against a Vanessa, which is the exact reason that I took Radiant. Because so often, Port Vanessa will steamroll you by freezing your whole board. This Vanessa has an Icy Revolver, 2 Frost Potions, and a Blizzard. a blizzard whose value I question considering he has multiple frost potions, but he has absolutely no way to deal with the amount of damage coming out of this ship, and it being radiant gives me the victory. This run ends if I don't hit radiant right before this fight. Every single point of experience I ever got mattered. Happy to see it. We come into day 13, we see Zera. Haste and charge skills are very good. You can get haste freeze, you can get upgraded alacrity. There are quite a few options. And here we see quick freeze and alacrity. We end up taking, I actually don't know which one I took. I think I took quick freeze. All right, we take quick freeze. And that's because item disruption's invaluable. For the same reason I wanted radiant, my opponents are all terrified of freeze. And as I said a second ago about a Stell vendor maybe fixing this and giving me something better than honing knife, unfortunately, Stell was not one of the vendors we were offered. We end up going to Dooley, looking for some one-slot tools from him that also count as friends to free up more board space. And when I roll and I hit Hamlet, I buy him almost immediately without realizing that he is a weapon. So is Chris Army Knife. Getting either of those friend tools onto my board necessitates losing lifesteal. And there's gonna be a lot of board juggling between now and me giving up and being sad about the fact that I cannot make it work. But at the end of it, Hamlet sits impotently in my bags, and my board is the exact same as it was when I leave Dooley. Here I see Void Golem, and I think I can probably kill Void Golem. I'm gonna kill him pretty immediately, just like Void Colossus. And I just sort of blank out and forget that Void Golem can instantly destroy my flagship. So it's just a 1 in 5 to lose, but I don't get hit by it, so we win pretty much instantly. But that was really aggressively the wrong play to make. That was so obviously wrong.
See that play?
But there is no justice, never punished, and we make it through. Pick up Void Ray, we're happy with our golden experience. We immediately sell off this Uzi that we dug up with the port at the start of the day, and we're happy to see another skill vendor. Nufu is your best friend in the late game. Here we have a bunch of options. They're all basically nothing, and then Paralytic Poison, which is when the boat starts, it will crit, triggering poison on the crow's nest and freeze. And a part of me is like, is there a reason to roll? Is there something I'm not getting with these other skills? Is there a way that my crits scale Pesky Pete to the moon? And then I eventually say, no, we're not rolling this. You take Paralytic Poison. It's too much guaranteed value. But it is a decision that I do think is genuinely interesting that could go multiple ways. Here, as we so often have been doing in the late game, we take Force Multiplier. Experience is good, but we've already gotten our final upgrade with the enchant, and getting more and more damage on this boat is essential to making sure that we don't just fail to kill someone with 15,000 health on the final day. And we go to that bitch Pearl. And Pearl is a great way to burn money. I just need a better friend or a better tool that only takes up 1 slot. How much money can I have to spend before I find that? And the answer is, there's a lot of cool stuff that Pearl has, but none of it fits on my board. And unfortunately, after I've spent most of my gold here, I come to the inevitable conclusion that we were never going to upgrade any items on our board. The useless 1-slot tool is the best we can do. And I'll just leave here 30 gold lighter for my trouble. We're not there yet. We're gonna roll a couple more times in self-grief. And wait, hold up. What if our useless 1-slot tool actually made money? So we end up taking a diamond loop. Is our board better? No. But do we have more economy? Yes. And also it's funnier when our opponents lose to our flagship ghost that has a diamond loop on board. But realistically, that is not at all what I wanted from Pearl. I did not want to buy a 50 gold diamond loop that will never pay for itself. It's just the best thing I was able to do with what I saw on the rolls. We encounter another flagship build. This one appears to be generally weaker than me, with inferior skills, lower quality crow's nest, silliness involving Spices and Shadow Cloak trying to scale, but most importantly, no resilience to freeze because theirs is burning and not radiant. There, but for the grace of God go I got lucky on my level up reward. But yeah, being the one with better freeze skills and a radiant ship puts me miles ahead in the mirror against a build like that. And here, I couldn't in good conscience tell you why I'm at middle. I have no idea what led me to take that choice. And here, looking at temp rewards, which is permanent health, in the late game when permanent health is 830 instead of a relatively small number, it's pretty easy to justify going to Jewels and relaxing. None of these enemies have anything special for us, so we just go to the most valuable one, most gold, most experience, and we expect to kill him instantly. He's got 3,500 health. How quickly does the ship put him down? And the answer is instantly. Good. Because the ship is at 100% crit, self-hasted at the start off of rush, and then spamming haste and charging for 2 every time it goes off and crits respectively. So the ship's starting to get alarmingly fast and high damage. Unfortunately, we have no great options here. We take vehicle cooldown, but it's not particularly powerful. And what we're seeing on the board with Quixel and a free item and gumballs, like gumballs are pretty bad when you have tons of health already. You have no shield items, you have 100% crit, and 1 damage is a minuscule amount, and you're kind of broke. I should have thought about going to gumballs, because I have a diamond loop, but I'm mostly tilted about that and not really internalizing the fact. We end up going to Quixel looking for something to improve this loop, and I really don't know what I'm hoping to find here. We should 100% have gone to gumballs to generate 10 gold. I just forgot I had a diamond loop, but I'm thrilled to see Nufu. That man is run saving. And here I have to really think about what's being offered to me, not this garbage on the right. I have to think, if I roll, will I get something better than Alacrity? Because right now, Alacrity is worth 2 seconds, a total of 10 seconds of charges, or it can be worth 3 seconds, a total of 15 seconds of charges. It's a lot better with the upgrade, and I trigger the entire thing the first time the ship goes off, which is triggering item destruction, is unfortunately being wasted on Pesky Pete, and it is also triggering the boat itself, which is the huge one. Here we run into a terrifying damage build, but we have start of combat freeze, the ship instantly charges itself, the shotgun goes off, but not the rest of the combo, and the ship bulldozes through him before anything else can happen. I also love the part where the harpoon gun sniped the knives, guaranteeing we win essentially. There's no result of the freezes where we don't kill that man, I think, but it's nice to see the build actually working, dealing tons of damage, being actually pretty damn resilient and disruptive. And I've already made the first pick and instantly gone into Nufu because that's the world we live in. And on this page, I have to decide, is 2 seconds of freeze on Stunning Strike going to matter? No, probably not. The game's not gonna last 10 seconds. So let's go ahead and roll, and we get stark nothing. Minor poison, minor gold, red envelope, which is also minor gold, but the most minor gold of the options available, and we go back for a rematch with Void Colossus. Void Colossus is already established as something we beat. We should beat him much easier this time. It's a huge amount of gold and experience. So we're happy to get this fight, but we're still not really getting stronger from it outside of leveling up. We're hoping to get better skills in the second half of the day, and that's really all we can hope for. In the Supreme late game, a lot of the time you'll find your build can't really get a lot of new items on its board, and you're just hoping to get level up rewards that make you stronger and skill vendors. Here, Force Amplifier for 38 damage, because level times 2 is a shitload at this point, we've taken so much experience, is pretty massive. Unfortunately, we're left with a Jules and basically nothing else that can improve our board. So we go to Jules, we take the life. Because 1,000 life forever is pretty tremendous. I'm gonna be sad when Jules inevitably gets fixed and stops being glitched, because going to Jules all the time with the bonus health is pretty powerful. So is Diamond Silencer. I've gone to so many vendors mistakenly, and then as I get to Andy and see that, I realize I dug up a gold battery at the start of the day, which is an ammo item and a tool, and like arguably would have been a massive improvement to my board, and I just hadn't looked at it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the silencer. I'm like, yeah, the silencer's better though, isn't it? The silencer is 40% CDR and huge amounts of flat damage. The battery's not bad. It'll charge the ship several times. The amount of time the ship will fire non-stop after the alacrity burst at the start will increase. But having the ship just go off a little bit faster is really valuable. Having the ship hit harder is really valuable. And I end up going with silencer over battery and dropping down to 4 multicast, because at this point what I've realized is the ship is just shooting forever because alacrity is self-charging, and after it goes off, it's basically on internal cooldown for several seconds. Here, we fight one of the best mirrors I've ever seen, where 7 of our slots are identical, and we both have radiant ships as our build around. However, my damage output is vastly higher than his, and the disruption from my skills seemed like they mattered a little bit. The main thing that was happening here is my ship went off way earlier and it had a higher damage value, which brings us to the final day, one way or the other. We have a street festival again for hero merchants, but it's not really very good because what am I gonna replace? What on my board can be replaced by anything, really? And then I realized that the other options are also pretty terrible at poison and gold, so it's kind of just a shit place to be. I fiddled with my inventory for a while before saying, all right, Professor Wriggle can improve my board, even if it's just an upgrade to paralytic poison or more poison on the crow's nest. Nothing else here does anything. And then I have to choose between 1 second of freeze duration or 8 poison every time the ship goes off. I choose 8 poison. I think it's more likely to be the difference maker. Barcoon really can't help me, neither can Finn's Big Bite. I don't know why I'm at Barcoon. I'm looking for this ship. I don't think Finn's Big Bite's going to give me any relevant amount of health. I'm trying to increase my damage by upgrading the ship, but it was an incredibly long shot. And here, I'm taking vehicle cooldown. It's the only thing increasing the damage of the ship. I remove my silencer first so that I don't self-grief by reducing the amount of cooldown reduction that I get. And Lord of the Waste really is trivial. If you make it to day 16 on an offensive build, it should probably look more or less like this when you fight people. But the ship is going off ludicrously fast at this point. It deals a ton of damage very, very quickly. It cannot be stopped. It's sort of inevitable. And we have once more hit Nufu. Unfortunately, Oceanic Rush is not that good. We've already got starting haste on the ship, and it might just hit the harpoon gun. We can take it. It's not necessarily bad, but it's much more likely to be better for us if we roll this shop. And looking at our final options, we have completely useless lifesteal, poison scaling, 1 second of freeze duration, and I don't even, oh, it's reduce your other cooldowns by 5%. You know, the ones you don't care about because you're all in on the flagship. So this last skill vendor we hit really doesn't give us much. There is 1 hour left, apparently. And here I go to Jules, but I don't know if the bug is in place where I've already leveled up, or sorry, during this level, I've taken bonus health, so the bonus health isn't going to take effect properly. So instead, I take damage here. Not because I think 25 damage is necessarily better than 1,000 health, but I genuinely don't know that I would get 1,000 health at this point in time if I took that reward. And in this last fight against Vanessa, we see the telltale sign of day 16, a million skills. He's a port build with freeze potion, haste potion, slow potion, and the flagship does not give a single solitary fuck. It is such a nice way to be able to beat these port builds, is just by having a powerful radiant thing as your build around that's going to solo grind through their entire board, and flagship's actually pretty well poised to do that. Anyways, I'm gonna hand it off to my past self to do the outro, because right after I played it, I explained everything I could about the build, because I felt like there were so many moving pieces contributing to the value that I wouldn't be able to do it well retrospectively. So the ship deals 432 damage times 4 times 2 because of the Toxic Crow's Nest. A while back, I took the silencer for CDR and plus damage because I was no longer able to fit the honing steel on the left side and still get the haste out of Lefty Lucy, so I wanted this permanently hasting my board by having it all the way to the left, and I gave up my tool. I couldn't ever find a place. I constantly was like, oh man, I wish this hadn't been nerfed. But at the end of the run, it didn't really matter that this was only multicast 4, because with all of the charging I was getting from Alacrity, combined with all of the haste, this thing basically would trigger and then the fight would end when it stopped shooting. It would just have enough shots queued up after the Alacrity boost that someone would be dead. Like if there had been a 40,000 health pig, maybe the ship would have stopped firing, we would have run out of steam. But we were able to fire it pretty much continuously between 3.1 base speed with the silencer and a bit of CDR that we found, the Alacrity, and the continuous haste from Lefty Lucy. The harpoon is generally a good thing to have as the ammo fill for your ship anyway. It helps your pig match up a ton. We got a lot of ammo in this early on, allowing us to dismantle some boards, as there wasn't a way to replace that was better. It's the same with Pesky Pete. Ages ago, I swapped him in over the jellyfish because poison or burn, either way it didn't really matter, but Pesky Pete would allow me to theoretically get Aquatic Rush and have it be targeting this instead of going onto a wasted jellyfish. And the star of the build, the Toxic Crow's Nest, that is dealing 18 poison every time the ship goes off, as well as giving the ship 100% crit and double damage. Now, the ship is theoretically really not that tough, but because it goes off instantly and it's triggering for 860 damage plus 20-ish poison every time it triggers, and after about 1.9 seconds, it starts triggering every 0.2 seconds until the combat ends, you're looking at like 4,000 DPS out of this, and it really can't be stopped. You'd have to get in under it and destroy, I guess, Pesky Pete, because the silencer isn't going to change the damage output that much. There's not a ton of item destruction weakness in this build, and you can't stop the ship. It's going to happen because it got Radiance. As for the real thing that makes this so broken, it is finding Rush at that monster vendor to give me the starting haste. I was expecting to use Aquatic Rush. It's a lot more likely. That's why we have Pesky Pete, but Rush will absolutely do the same thing. It gives you 5 seconds of starting haste, which will never run out when you combine it with Lefty Lucy in the multicast. We also have Paralytic Poison, so that when the ship goes off, it crits, triggering the Toxic Crow's Nest, freezing an item for 4 seconds. We're not done listing our freezes. We have quick freeze the first time you haste each fight, which is at the start of the fight, freeze for 5 seconds. We have stunning strike the first time you crit each fight, which will be about 1.9 seconds into the fight guaranteed, freeze for 8 seconds. These 3 freeze effects allowed us to steamroll a couple of fights by just preventing people from doing anything off the bat. There are a lot of late game builds like mine that have pretty much just the flagship, and as a result, there were a lot of late game builds. That ridiculous burst build comes to mind, where they had 3 really important items, and we just turned them off until they died. And like, if that fight had went on for like 20 more seconds, the freezes would have worn off and they'd have killed me instantly. But it didn't go on that long. And something that's sort of the unsung hero of the run, I think, is absolutely heavy weaponry. Obviously, 120 damage itself is massive. Everyone can look at this and see heavy weaponry is a huge portion of my damage. To be precise, it's a little bit over a fourth. However, I was constantly taking level up rewards where it was like based on weapons, based on level, double your level, but only for 1, where I was just incrementally building the damage of this ship up so that it would not fall off. I'm so happy this won, because this is one of the runs where I was like, oh man, we are so screwed. Somewhere between like days 4 and 7, where I was really cynical about it. I was like, we're going to keep playing. We're going to try to pull this out. I know you can get a ship run to work. And for once, I finally got the ship to work, and I'm thrilled about it. Very cool build. Shows off ethical skills, where you're just briefly disabling your opponent from playing the game and telling them they can't do the same back to you. Unlike stuff like hardened corners, hardened shields, sharpened corners, whatever. There are so many skills where it's like individually the skill is broken. This build is very much the combination of all the pieces is, I don't even want to say broken, pretty good. I feel like I got a little bit lucky for my opponents to get to 10 wins, but I'm glad this build can pull it out. Anyway, that'll be enough from me. Thank you for your time. If you made it this far, then please do hit all the buttons to make the algorithm happy. I really appreciate it. And I cannot overstate my gratitude towards the people supporting this channel, both as patrons on Patreon and channel members here on YouTube. I'll see all of you in the next one.